How does a medium differentiate between spiritual reality and natural reality? Well, here's the thing. We all need to understand that all of you, including me, are mediums. Of course, each one at a different level, right? Some people have an obvious dignity, while others do not. The spiritual world is all around us, okay? Like it or not, you can pick it up, and you pick it up through our pineal gland. So even if it's just a thought, that's what Allan Kardec concluded, that we are all mediums. Why? Because at least in your thoughts, you are influenced by spirits. Many times for good, many times for evil. So there's that. Intrusive thoughts are thoughts from obsessors, those intuitions that make you avoid some danger, are thoughts from your guardian angel. So, we are all part of this universe, where there is a spiritual world, and the physical world is also inevitable. Good morning, I miss people I don't even know, and sometimes I feel like they're with me. That's very common. It is also common for people to dream about certain people, and then have the same feeling. It's also common for a person to go through that NDE, which is a near-death experience, where they leave their own body, go to places, and meet people. They know they recognize those people, but they can't remember who they are. And they have that feeling for those people too. Why? Because we have many spiritual friends. And many times you have more friends, let's say your true family, is in the spiritual world, not in the physical world. This often happens. So, of course, sometimes it's not the case. Sometimes you reincarnated with your true family. Sometimes you reincarnated into a family that isn't yours. And you feel that in the spiritual world they are there. So you feel that longing and all that. But all of this is temporary, because incarnation is just this here, compared to the universe we live in, right? Do you believe in exes? Well, exes are spirits that work on behalf of a certain organization. Not an organization, right? For example, in Umbanda or whatever. And for me, everything is fine. I don't think the name matters, you know? I don't think like that, oh, it's an exu, so he's better or worse. I think what matters is what he is doing. So, whether it's a black elder, a white elder, an exu, or whatever, I think they deserve respect based on the work they do and the good they can bring to others. Basically, that's it. So the name doesn't change anything for me. But if it does them good to use that name, that's fine too. It won't make a difference for us. What really matters are the actions, the intentions, the thoughts, and not the name. The name won't lead anyone to anything. And it doesn't mean anything either. Because I have the impression that only bad people do well in this world. Yeah, but that makes sense. Why? Those who are in that phase of doing wrong and managing to get ahead are in a stage before those who are suffering the consequences of that first phase, you know. We are spiritual beings who undergo the process of reincarnation, experiencing life in various forms. Throughout our many lifetimes, we encounter a multitude of challenges, including living with different diseases. Additionally, we often face persecution for reasons that are not always clear. Why do these things happen to us as we continue our journey through the cycle of life and rebirth? Because he's paying off his last debts there, to be purified, and he did, of course, and free to reach angelhood. So that's necessary. So everyone is in a phase, and that's part of it. Worry about yourself. That's the best, the most important thing. Not to be thinking about others. I have difficulty understanding what our bodies are like when we disincarnate. Actually, when we disincarnate, we no longer have a physical body. It's fluid. It's energy. In fact, physical matter is energy in another form, but everything in the universe is energy. So let's put it this way. The real body is actually the body of the disincarnate, of the one who is already dead, who is in spirit. And then he has a spirit and the perispirit. He doesn't have the physical part, the biological part. But what we see here on earth, what we touch and experience, is a poorly made copy of the spiritual world. The biological organism is more primitive, let's put it that way. And with the purification of the spirit and evolution, the physical aspect becomes less and less significant, and he becomes more and more spiritual. It's important to understand this. What happens to the spiritual world during Lent? Nothing happens. Lent makes no difference at all. Unless you make moral changes, then it does. The truth is that what you do for your life in terms of rituals, fasting, what difference will it make? You eat meat all year round, and then during Lent you don't eat meat. What difference is that going to make? None. You can kneel, at least, but that won't make any difference. Now, if you make moral changes reflections on your existence, on how to improve, on how to be a better person, then that definitely makes a difference for sure. So Lent itself in the spiritual world doesn't mean anything in any other ritual, like baptism. In fact, Jesus didn't baptize anyone. He didn't promote baptism. So these rituals, tithing, etc., are created by man. Jesus didn't create any of that, nor did God send us in any way. Lent, just one of them. Does the guy who takes his own life stay in the place? No. I mean, yes, they can stay. It depends on the situation. But what happens to them is that they usually go to the threshold of that takes their own life, which is the worst threshold that exists. It's just that the place where he committed that terrible act, the act of cowardice, of taking his own life, becomes contaminated. He becomes contaminated with the worst energy that exists, because there's no worse energy than this, okay? It's the guy who does that. So the house really becomes contaminated like that, the environment. It can take a long time to clear up. But if you're living in a house where this happened, do a lot of gospel readings. Always keep your mind clear and pray to keep that environment cleaner, you know, because it really contaminates. When a person makes this terrible mistake, they contaminate in a very impressive way. The obsessors of this type. But of course, if you go to a bar, you will definitely encounter obsessors. And several, including, it's going to be like 8, 9, 10 sucking from one person. That's normal, you know. Now they really like the alcoholic, right? Because the alcoholic is feeding them every day. If not every day almost, so they will always be looking for it. And there's a struggle, you know. They get into fights among themselves to be able to drain and incarnate. So Joãozinho drinks a lot and he gets into fights to see who will be the one sucking Joãozinho's energy. That's exactly how it is. You understand? It's complicated. So drugs are even worse because drugs are horrible. You understand? How does it work when a person dies from a disease? For example, cancer. Look, there isn't exactly the same thing, right? It varies a lot. There are several things that vary. But let's give 2 examples, okay? A good person. They go to the spiritual society, they're already admitted to the hospital, and stay there until they recover their paraspirit from the damage caused by cancer. That happens. He receives treatment. The person who wasn't a good person or who did bad things goes to the umbral and will be stuck there suffering and dealing with their physical problems. Remember the movie NOSSO? Andre Luis didn't die with a stomach problem, and his stomach wasn't completely wrecked. He was only healed when he was healed. 8 years later, that is, he spent 8 years in the umbral, with his stomach wide open, in a lot of pain, you understand. Only after he had merit, he was taken to the hospital and then treated by that guy who was with him, the nurse. So then he got better. But until that happened, he just got messed up, including with the problem he had.